welcome back to our channel Isma English. Today I bring you a special story, one filled with memories, friendship, and the beauty of a small town by the sea. This is the first part of Omar's journey. A young man preparing to leave the only home he ever knew. We'll walk with him through the old streets, meet the people who shaped his life, and feel the warmth of the place he grew up in. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the beginning of this emotional and inspiring story. Let's start. Omar had lived in Nala town for as long as he could remember. To us, not a big town, not a famous one, and not a modern place full of tall buildings. It was just a small, warm town by the sea, simple. Old, crowded in some corners, quiet in others, but to Omar, it was the whole world. He grew up in a neighborhood called Heret Alfanor, named after the lighthouse that stood on the far eastern cliff. The lighthouse was old, its paint peeling, but every evening its light swept across the dark water like a slow heartbeat. Squid. When Omar was a kid, he used to sit on the roof at night and count how many times the light turned before he fell asleep. The streets of Alfanor were narrow and uneven. Some parts were paved with stones, others still had soft sand, and when cars drove by, dust would rise into the air like smoke. But the people loved these streets. They were filled with life sounds, smells, faces, stories. Omar knew every corner of them. The shops of the town, the first place you smelled every morning was Abu Nasser's bakery, right at the beginning of the street. Bay. The smell of fresh bread mixed with roasted sesame and sometimes cinnamon was enough to wake the whole neighborhood. Abu Nasser was a large man with a big smile. His hands were always white from flour, and he never let anyone leave without tasting something. "Take this, Omar," he would say, handing him a warm piece of bread. "You're too thin. Bread makes the mind sharp." Next to the bakery was Hala's flower shop, a tiny place with colorful pots outside. Hala was an old woman who spoke softly, like she was always singing. Her shop smelled like jasmine and roses, even in winter. She had been there since before Omar was born, and every time someone got married, she made the flowers for the wedding. Further down the street stood the old market, a noisy, messy place where everything could be found. Spices, toys, clothes, tools, fruit, cheap electronics. Sometimes even things nobody needed but still bought. Street vendors shouted their prices, kids ran between the stands, and cats walked proudly like they owned the market. The most famous of them was Uncle Ferid, who sold roasted nuts. His stand was small but always busy. He had a trick. He roasted the nuts right there in front of people, letting the smell fill the air and pull customers like magic. Across the market was the Blue Calf, a place where older men sat every afternoon. They played cards, argued about football, discussed politics, and told stories from 30 years ago like they happened yesterday. Omar often passed by and heard bits of their conversations. The people of his life, Omar's closest friends were Sami and Kareem. Sami lived in the building next to Omar. He was tall, a little clumsy, and always laughing. His family owned a small grocery shop called Mini Market Al Salam. Sometimes Omar and Kareem helped Sami carry boxes inside. The shop was famous for its cold drinks in summer, and for Sami's mother, who always gave candies to kids who came to the shop alone. Kareem, on the other hand, lived at the end of the street and worked with his father in a carpentry workshop. The workshop was always dusty, filled with the smell of wood and the sound of cutting machines. Kareem knew how to fix almost anything: chairs, shelves, broken drawers. He liked quiet work, and he liked thinking. Between the three of them, Kareem was the calm one. Every afternoon, the boys met on the small hill behind the neighborhood. It wasn't high, but from the top, they could see the roofs of the town, the lighthouse, the market, the beach, and in the distance, the small fishing harbor. They talked about everything: dreams, fears, future plans, jokes, and sometimes memories that made them laugh until they cried. Omar's old job, even though Omar was still young, he worked part-time at the Sea Breeze restaurant, a family-owned place facing the beach. He helped set the tables, carried dishes, cleaned, and sometimes took simple orders. The restaurant owner, Uncle Jamil, treated Omar like a son. "You work fast, boy," he often told him, "and you smile with your eyes." Customers love boys who smile with their eyes. Omar learned many things there: how to handle busy days, how to talk to people politely, how to organize time, and how to stay calm even when 10 customers shouted at the same time. He also made friends with the workers, Ali the chef, a strict man with a soft heart, Lena the waitress who talked too much, and Hassan the dishwasher who always sang old songs while working. The restaurant became a second home for Omar after school. He walked to the beach, entered the kitchen, tied his apron, and started working. And every evening, when his shift ended, he sat for a few minutes in front of the sea, watching the waves touch the sand. The town's daily life every day had its rhythm. Morning, bakery smells, school kids running, shopkeepers opening their stores. Afternoon, markets busy, workers returning, the sun turning golden. Evening, families sitting outside, kids playing football in the street, lights turning on one by one. Night, the lighthouse sweeping the water, far boats shining like tiny stars. Old Nola Town was not perfect. Sometimes power went out, sometimes water stopped. Sometimes people argued loudly in the market. But it was alive, it was full of stories. It was Omar's home, and he never imagined leaving it. The news that changed everything one normal afternoon. Omar returned home to find his parents sitting quietly at the table. They looked nervous. His mother spoke first. "Omar, we have something important to tell you." His father added, "We are moving to another country. A new beginning." It felt like the room became smaller. Omar couldn't breathe for a moment. Leave Old Nola Town, leave his friends, the market, the sea, the hill, the restaurant, the lighthouse. He didn't know what to say. His parents continued, explaining it was for work, better opportunities, a safer life, a stronger future. Omar understood, but his heart didn't. The last week, everything suddenly had meaning: the streets, the sounds, the faces. Omar began noticing details he never looked at before. The cracks on the old barbershop wall. The way kids drew chalk lines on the ground. The old man who sold newspapers on a wooden cart. The pigeons on the roof of the mosque. The broken window of the yellow school bus. The color of the sunset reflected on the lighthouse. He visited all the places he loved. Abu Nasser's bakery, where he got one last free piece of bread. The flower shop, where Holla gave him a small dried rose to remember the town by. The blue calf where the old men told him, "Travel boy," and return stronger. The market where Uncle Ferid packed him a bag of roasted nuts for the road. He worked his last shift at the restaurant. Ollie the chef hugged him awkwardly. Lena cried. Hassan sang him a goodbye song. The last night, Sammy and Kareem insisted on spending the final evening together. They walked to the beach, ate roasted corn, chased the waves, and talked about old memories. Then they went to the top of the small hill, their place. The town lights were glowing softly. The wind was warm. The lighthouse turned slowly, shining across the sea like it was waving goodbye. "I don't want to forget any of this," Omar whispered. "You won't," Sammy replied. "This is home. We'll come back," Kareem added calmly. "Even if it's just in stories." They stayed there until the sky turned dark blue. When Omar returned home and lay in bed, he felt something heavy and something hopeful at the same time. He knew his life was about to change. He didn't know what the new country would look like. He didn't know what new friends he would make. He didn't know if he would find work, or understand the people, or feel at home again. But he knew this. His story was not ending. It was turning into something new. In this first part of Omar's story, we followed him through the last days in the town where he grew up, on Allah. We walked with him through the narrow streets, passed by the old bakery, the colorful flower shop, and the noisy market. We met his childhood friends, Sammy and Kareem, and learned about his job at the Sea Breeze restaurant. We felt the warmth of his neighborhood, the beauty of his memories, and the sadness of the news that changed everything. His family was moving to a new country. Omar spent his final week saying goodbye to the places and people who shaped his entire life. And now, his journey to the unknown is just beginning. Let's see how well you remember the story. Answer these questions in the comments. Who were Omar's two closest friends in his old town? What was the name of the bakery that Omar visited every morning? Where did Omar work part-time, and what did he learn there? Why was Omar's family moving to a new country? What special place did the boys visit on Omar's last night in town? What special place did the boys visit on Omar's last night in town? Tay. Thank you for listening to today's story. If you enjoyed this first part of Omar's journey, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss part 2. A whole new life is waiting for Omar, and we'll discover it together in the next episode. See you soon.